Hey there, Dynamite fans. I am here to give you the quick sneak peek of what's coming on our Monday show this February 28th. We're going to have Spider-Gwen number 2, Vampirella Strikes number 4, the Blood Red Ultra Limited cover, Superman and Wonder Woman number 15 signed by Pete Tomasi, and we're going to have more commission cover art, maybe a statue, a mega kit, and so much more. Please join us this Monday, February 28th, here on The Experience at 6 p.m. I'll be there. So's Rex and John and Robbie. Hope to see you there.
What is up, everybody? I am Rockin Robbie. Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I got my buddy Rex with me. What's up, Rex?
What's going on, buddy?
You know, excited to sit here and have another conversation. Me and Rex on Fridays, we've been tackling the easy questions. Tonight, we're tackling the question, how do we bring new readers into comics? Because one way, we've talked a lot already. Like last week, we were talking about prices, and we mentioned how that could be a barrier to new readers coming in, but there's a lot of other factors outside of price. We definitely want to get into that tonight. We want to know what you think, so drop a comment below to let us know what you think we can do to bring new readers into comics. And of course, you'll be entered to win a contest, and that winner will be announced on Monday's show over at The Experience with me, Rex, and John.
Which reminds me, I got to grab today's prize. I forgot to grab it when I came in here.
Oh, that's okay. I forgot to set up the prize wheel, so we got plenty of time to do that. So there you go. All right, but we do have that show over at the EXP, The Experience. There's a link in the description below. We go live on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for 2 hours with Rex and John. And then, of course, on Wednesday, they have the show with AR Comics. And then on Friday nights over there, you can find the original art show with Nick, right?
That is right. So tonight from 7 to 8 on The Experience, all Eastern Time, Nick will be here with the original art. And on Wednesday, we touched on a topic that I think we're probably going to revisit. We got into Western movies on Wednesday, and then started almost segueing into horror comics, horror films. But then I said we should probably hold off on that, wait until we have Robbie on, because Robbie is a huge horror fan, and you know would be a depth of knowledge that we're missing. Turns out that we did find out that Alec is not into Westerns. A little disappointing. Almost like finding out you were a Cowboys fan. Ironically enough. But we tried to encourage him to start watching some Westerns. I don't know if he'll do it or not. We'll see.
Oh man, we gotta curate him a really good list. There's so many good ones out there. You know, Once Upon a Time in the West, Few Dollars More, all the Sergio Leone stuff.
We covered. I think and as always, the viewers make the show. And when we opened up that topic, boy, let me tell you, they were just throwing out their suggestions, movies that I had even forgotten as well, throwing them out there, anywhere from Blazing Saddles, the comedy genre, to to obviously the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, to modern day, darker films like Unforgiven, just all up and down a gambit. It was amazing. I was amazed. I mean, people were just punching things up on the chat, movies I had totally forgotten from the way gone era and stuff. But it was fun. It's fun, and I think we're gonna have fun with the horror genre on Monday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Westerns. We've actually done a Westerns podcast one time, and that was a great show. Actually, I don't remember much of it because we were like, let's get the cheapest whiskey we can find. Let's drink it hot and warm, like real cowboys did. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's do it, right? I love Westerns. Oh, it was fine during the show, and then afterwards, I don't remember too much. But
probably you have to remember, you have to have a corked bottle, and you have to pull the cork out with your teeth.
That's right.
That's standard cowboy. Yeah, that's standard cowboy, and then poof, spit the cork out. That's standard cowboy procedure for drinking bourbon from a bottle.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, man. People will say, like, for instance, AR may think that he doesn't like Westerns, but I bet he does. He just hasn't found the right one, right? Like we were saying, there's all the classic ones, High Noon, the spaghetti Westerns. Like Once Upon a Time in the West is one of my favorites. But then you got like the neo-Western, right? You got shows like Justified with Timothy Olyphant. That's a Western, right? It's just set in a modern day. No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers. That's a Western, right? Like, so there's tons of stuff. I think, man, he really, Lonesome Dove. I mean, come on, man. How you not like Westerns, man? I love me some Westerns, buddy.
I don't know. We're going to have to ask him again.
I'm going to have to bring him on my channel and just grill him about that. Be like, all right, bro, I want you to come on the channel and talk about Westerns with me.
How funny would that be?
That would be great. But
So,
yeah, a horror conversation. You better be careful because I can go off.
oh,
On that
dude,
one.
I know that. That's why I said we should hold up this conversation until Monday when Robbie's on the show, because we're missing our expert here, dude. So
No.
yeah, so that's why we kind of held back on that, because I knew that it would be ridiculous to have this conversation without you. Okay, because
Well,
I know
appreciate it.
what a huge horror fan you are, going to horror cons and stuff like that. So I knew we had to have this conversation with Rockin Robbie.
Yeah, we already bought our tickets for this year's Scare Fest, which was the con that we went to last year. So
Yeah.
they're already getting that guest list put together, and I'm like, I don't care.
Nice.
It's good enough for me right now. Let's
You're
sign
going
up.
anyway.
Yeah, we're going anyway. It's gonna be
There you go.
it's gonna be a yearly tradition. So that was super fun. So heck yeah, westerns are great, horror movies are great, comic books are great, right? What do we do to get more people to read comics, new readers, right? We have this whole situation set up where a lot of it depends now on the direct market. It didn't always used to be like that. There used to be many different places where people would find comics. When I was a kid, we had this conversation at the shop earlier this week. Rex, it was really interesting. So one of the people that works at my shop, he's like 18, right? So he goes, Robbie, when you first started reading comics, where did you find them? What comic shop did you go to? I was like, well, believe it or not, young man, there used to be this thing called the newsstand. And I was like, and that's where I found my first comics, right? Now, obviously, the 80s is a different world than it is today, right?
Yes.
But being a kid, going into the comic shops, going into the grocery stores, going into the gas stations, seeing comics there, Mom, please buy me this issue of Superman. Yep. Please buy me this Spider-Man comic.
The spinner rack.
Yeah, the spinner racks, or, however they laid it out, gas stations, grocery stores. We don't have any newsstands like what you think of traditionally, like, the New York corner street with the newsstand set up. We didn't have that in my town, but we had the comics plenty. They were plentiful. They were available all over the place. Nowadays, you can only really find them in comic shops. I'm talking about the single issue floppies. Graphic novels you can find at bookstores, and there's a lot of places online like Amazon or whatnot, but
right,
it's not quite the same. And I hear people, especially like a casual reader, finding it very difficult to figure out, where does Captain America start? Okay, I read this Captain America Winter Soldier by Ed Brubaker, really liked it. What's next? It's hard to find what's next with the way that a lot of trade paperbacks are kind of labeled nowadays. It's almost like they're afraid to label it as volume 4 of 10 or something like that, which blows my mind because manga does that very successfully. Right. People are still getting into One Piece, and that thing's at like 99 graphic novels right now. So I wonder, especially you being part of the publishing industry, what do you think we could do to bring in new readers?
Well, I think you brought up a really good point, and I think that the way that we, and I'm significantly older than you, so for me, I remember, a Greyhound rest stop, but a rest stop for the buses. You'd pull into a rest stop and they'd have a spinner rack, and I think that what that did was it created a situation where you may pick up titles that you don't necessarily follow because you were limited based on what was available on the spinner rack. So to be quite honest, I don't think I ever would have read Richie Rich, all right, to begin with, because that was, those are my choices. My options were very, very limited. And, further limited by my mom and what, looking at the cover of a comic, what she would allow and not allow, which created a situation where I ended up reading titles I probably would not have picked up or put on a pull list. Not that they existed back then, I don't think. Not as it exists in modern day. Yeah. So I think that's something that's lost that we're never going to get back. And there's really no way to get that back because the way that we buy everything now has shifted. It's very different. Who would have ever thought that getting groceries delivered to your doorstep was a commonplace thing? It's just our buying habits, our method of buying has shifted significantly.
Well, like, for instance, when's the last time a lot of people don't even go into the gas station anymore? They just drive up, they pay at the pump and they go. So exactly. The whole method has changed.
Yeah, you would expect that now there are no convenience stores that carry comics, right? So you don't have a newsstand edition and a direct edition anymore, because the marketplace doesn't exist that way. So when you've opened up a can of worms here, but most of your questions do, which is, I guess, the good thing about it. How do you get more people to read? I don't know. I'll tell you why I don't know. And we've touched on the topic a lot when we've kind of dealt with other questions. But it really boils down to how people receive their information. So, we keep going back to the same problem. And I think at the core is going to be, now what direction or answer is, I don't know. But the digital versions and the physical versions. Okay, I think at all of these questions at the foundation, when you get right down to it, boils down to those two things. So again, for lack of a better example, it's the way that the younger generation in America or in the world now, how do they obtain their information? Okay, even in college, where I remember, going to the campus bookstore and buying copies of these huge textbooks, and you have to budget at least $300 to $400 a semester in just the textbooks you would need. Now you can get an e-version of it. You can get a discounted version. Now what's been very interesting from the publisher end for textbooks has been that even if you buy, let's say a digital version is not available of a particular textbook, you can buy, but what they're going to end up sending you is not a bound textbook, with a hardcover. What you're going to get are loose leaf pages, okay? And then you have to get your own little, 3-ring binder and stick your pages in there.
Yeah.
Why? Why are they going in that direction? Makes a lot of sense to me. Because one of the problems, or one of the things that existed in the past with textbooks, was that you could buy a used one and save some money, right? And go back to the bookstore and cash in. They give you pennies on the dollar, but whatever, you're still getting something for a textbook you're never going to read again, right?
Yeah.
So now, to avoid that problem of people being able to obtain used copies, they give it to you in this loose leaf format, which we all remember from school. Okay, invariably, it's the pages. Some of those pages going to rip out of the textbook, right? So by the time you get to the end of the semester, and the way these kids take care of their textbooks, okay, more than likely it's going to be missing, tons and tons of pages because they've fallen out. Okay, it's a pretty crafty way of trying to make those sales stick. But eventually that's going to die as well, because as we know, everything is going to eventually move into a digital format. We kind of talked about this because we've talked about Kindle and other things like that. And, how does the LCS and the physical comic itself continue to survive? And we've kind of talked about that topic from different angles. In my opinion, the only way really that you're going to be able to increase readership overall of comic books has got to be through a concerted digital push, which then obviously has a back end problem of, well, what happens to LCSs? That's why I think that question was so relevant. How do you keep LCSs relevant and in business today if it's going to shift that way? Because the two are actually counter to each other. Okay, you want to increase readership on the one hand, obviously, bring more people into the fold of comic books, but you also want your LCSs to be able to survive. And unfortunately, right now at this moment, and I don't plan to, I'm not a super smart guy or anything. I can recognize the problem, but I don't necessarily have a solution. So, but right now, the way that I see it is the only way you're going to increase readership is it's almost like the tobacco companies. Sadly to say, one of the big things that tobacco companies have gone through the years is which has really been hard for them is the business model in the past has been, well, you've got to firmly market, okay, to a young generation if you're in the tobacco business. All right. You're not really worried about the guy that's been smoking 15, 20 years. All right. Because there's not much you're going to be able to do. He's already an addict. Okay. He's hooked to the nicotine. So you don't have to worry about him smoking. But the problem is you're wasting your marketing dollars trying to get him to switch brands, because that's the only thing you really can do. Right. And the reason is because smokers, I was one, I still am, unfortunately, and you stick to that one brand. And there's nothing you can say to me that's going to make me switch brands. It's just like the habit itself. That's where I'm stuck with. So the only way to grow your business, if you're a tobacco company, is to hook the younger generation, right? Yeah. And once you get them hooked, then you keep going, because unfortunately, your older generation, your long-term buyers are going to start dying of lung cancer, right? Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I see comics in very much the same predicament. The key to increase readership is to bring the youth in. But is the youth the comic book readers out there that are in that generation, are they going to opt for a physical book?
Yeah.
Are they going to opt to visit their LCS? All right. Although you and I have definitely talked about the uniqueness and the fun of going to an LCS or going to a con, I don't know that that's going to go over with the younger generation. All right. Because the only way that somebody's going to recognize this is if, kind of like Alex's situation where his dad was an avid comic fan as well. So the only way that's going to happen is the dad or the mom are avid comic collectors and they take little Joey or little Jane to their LCS. Yeah. They take them to that convention and then they, wow, this is really cool. That was really fun. New Comic Book Wednesday. That was so much fun, Mom and Dad. I can't wait to go again.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, to really increase the readership, you can't depend on that. You need to bring in new readers independently. Like my parents didn't read comic books. I independently, thanks to newsstands, thanks to convenience stores and the spinner rack, whatever the case may be, because my parents aren't taking me out. And I'm not even sure how many LCSs existed when I was that age. But, my mom and dad were going to take an extra trip to an LCS just because I wanted to. Actually, I remember when my dad was living in the San Francisco area, I couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. And we were in Berkeley, and there was my first experience in an LCS. I had never seen one before in all of my days, right? And I walked in there, and I was just like, whoa, right? And I was standing there looking at titles and stuff. I remember that experience vividly because my dad kept telling me, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I didn't go, and I got dragged out of the LCS because he told me I could buy one. All right, which was crazy. What are you? I looked at my father like he was crazy. Me, one? I mean, we're here. Let me buy 5, 10, right? And I remember I couldn't decide because he had limited me to one and he wanted to get going. And I remember getting my ass, whoops, can I say that? I just did.
Oh, yeah.
Dragged out of there by my ear. My dad was yanking on my ear up to the cash register, paid for the book, and then dragged me out of the LCS.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that, obviously. Not only was I embarrassed, but my ear hurt a lot. And then he wouldn't let me read it in the car. He said, no reading in a car because you'll make yourself sick. So worse than everything else, he wouldn't even let me read it until we got back to the house. Okay. It was just like burning a hole in my hands, holding it there, waiting. Right.
Yeah.
So how are you going to drag those new readers in? And I think really the only way you're going to be able to do that is through digital comics because everything that generation, all of the information input that they get is through that format. I probably use this example. I remember when the two cats we adopted during the pandemic had knocked out the plug to my TV. And stupid me, I just thought it's an older TV. I thought, the TV finally crapped out. I'll just have to bite the bullet and buy one. And 2-3 days, I just didn't get around to it. Then before I hit the buy button, I went to the back of the TV and go, are you kidding me? The plug was out. So I plugged it back in and everything worked fine. But the reason I bring up the story was that my daughter didn't even notice that the TV wasn't working because she doesn't really watch it. She's streaming on her laptop or on her desktop or on her phone or whatever. She doesn't need the TV. Okay. So she didn't even notice. I know that if our TV crapped out when I was her age, I would have lost my mind. Okay. We got to get a TV, Mom. We got to get the TV right this second. I can't stand another day like this. Right.
Yeah, for real.
So I just feel like that the only way is to reach them in the format that they're most comfortable with. And that's going to have to be digital comics.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. The digital thing is a big deal because first of all, you mentioned the limited options we had on the spinner rack, right? I would never buy, I read Richie Rich comics. I had Heathcliff comics. I had all kinds of stuff because that's what was available. Right. And I was buying Superman because they were always there on the newsstand. I was buying, Spider-Man. I was buying, Fantastic Four was like a little bit harder to find. So when I found comic shops, that's when I was able to start reading Fantastic Four consecutively, month to month to month.
Right.
But we also just had limited options, period. Right? Like as far as entertainment went and consumption of media. Like back when I was buying comics off the spinner racks in the 80s, there was a Nintendo, but like video games weren't like they are today. Right? You were talking about the digital formats. Your daughter didn't even notice that the TV wasn't turning on because people today, they're used to their devices, having their tablets, having their phones. We got to hit them there, right? So I look at music. Music people stopped buying CDs. They stopped buying physical music. We talked about this last week about how music shops had to kind of become what LCSs kind of are. And that's like this, like they're curators of like vintage, collectible, repressed deluxe packaging of albums on vinyl, repressed for a very specific market. However, people still listen to music, right? So people stopped buying physical CDs or records or cassette tapes or whatever it was, but everybody still listens to music. So even though people are stopping buying physical books or comics as much, aside from the collectors, a very specialized market, people still could consume this stuff, right? We talk about manga. We talked about it last week. There are manga services that are just like less than $5 a month that give you access to so much content, and people use it. And we find that some of those digital readers become physical collectors because they're like, hey, I read this book on there. They had the first few chapters there. I really liked it. Now I want to jump in and find it. And manga also has the benefit of being a little bit more easier to figure out where to start, because that is something that hinders some casual readers when they're just getting in, and then it can be so overwhelming, the history, the richness, all this stuff. Plus, you do have some people, and I've been guilty of it at times too, by being like, oh, you're new, you don't understand this, the stuff you like's not good. And that's something we need to kind of really tone down, because what people are into is what they're into, right? So limited options. I think the digital marketplace could be the new newsstand. I mean, that's basically what they need to do, right? I also think that it would help them if people were aware that comic books still exist. I hear this like once a week from someone in my shop. I didn't know they still made these things. Like, you didn't know they still made these things? Everybody's going to go see this Batman movie. How cool would it be just to have a trailer for they just announced Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez, the ongoing Batman team. How cool would that be just to have, I don't know, like some interviews, like a quick, like 2-minute trailer pumping up the fact that there's a Batman comic and this is a big deal. And if you like this movie, you should check this out. And what about this? What about, and this is my friend Jay Strick's idea. He's like, why don't they have a spinner rack in the movie theater? Like right there at the concession stand, like some Batman comics, or maybe even some to give away for free. Now, we've done this before. I used to work at movie theaters and I've worked at comic shops. I've done both of these, right? And so usually when a superhero movie would come out, like the shop would go over there and they'd hand out a bunch of stuff. Maybe like they would buy extra of a free comic book day issue to like pass out at a Spider-Man movie or something like that. 80% of those wound up in the trash or on the theater floor, right? But some of those kids may read those books, may treasure them the way that we treasured our handfuls of copies. Like I have right here is the very first comic I ever bought, that I ever had. Oh, wow. Yeah, right there. That's the original copy. Yeah, it's super cool, right? And it's beat to hell and back. You can imagine, I read this thing multiple times a day. Hey, I got the Mark Jewelers ad in there too. I know everybody freaks out over those. But yeah, I love this stuff. And so how do we bring that in? And the other thing is, my buddy John from John's Comics with Kids, we had a whole panel one day. We were having this discussion. This was months and months ago. And he's a teacher, and his kids are readers. And he said the biggest thing is this: not necessarily getting new comic book readers, getting new readers. That's the first step, right? People don't read like they used to. And he was explaining.
I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, and he was explaining it starts with parents reading. And when kids see parents reading, it's something that they understand as being just a part of life, right? My stepdad read comics. He's the one that sent this my way. You know what I'm saying? So like, he helped me grow into this industry, and then I got more into it than he did. Right? And because he eventually kind of fell out of it. He doesn't read comics anymore, but I never stopped, so that's another thing. I'm not talking about anybody specific or anything like that, but I don't feel like kids see their adults reading. And it's something that just, it's not as common, because now we got video games, we got TikToks, we got social media, we got our phones buzzing all the time, we're clicking, we're looking at it, right? And it's a different situation to sit down for an hour or two and just read a book by yourself and quiet, right?
I think you bring up an interesting point, because I think this is kind of where technology is really hurting that aspect of it. So my daughter is not an avid reader. I've tried time and time again. And you bring up a good point. Now, she knows I read because we have paperbacks all through the house. But at that point, before I converted almost completely to Kindle, she was little, you know? So at that critical age, I guess I must have already converted over to Kindle. And the problem that you have there is that I don't have an e-reader, something extra you got to charge up, something extra you can forget, right? So I found it, you know, with the iPhone, I can read it. It's not actually really bad at all. You know, you get less words on a page because I got that old man font going on. But you know, you just swipe, you just keep swiping.
Yeah.
Well, the problem that you have there is my daughter sees me because she's, you know, we travel. We used to travel once a year to Taiwan to visit my family, and she'd see me on the plane, right? You know, but what is she seeing? She's seeing me staring at my phone. Yeah. You know, and she's not really paying attention to what it is I'm staring, but he's looking at his phone. Yeah, it's just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So there is you've unpacked so many issues here. And, you know, my concern over time is, yes, you do have that nostalgia. You know, so as I think I mentioned, a flea market not too far away from here, the record shop, the guy's got everything. He's got vinyl LPs, he's got 45s, he's got cassette tapes, he even has CDs, you know, throughout the shop. And it was really interesting just to browse around. But, you know, and if like, I don't know, I guess it would be, you know, maybe Blondie or something like that. If I had found a cassette in his store with, you know, by Blondie, or Pat Benatar or something like that, I probably would have bought it. You know, I don't even have a cassette player anymore, but I probably would have bought it because it just reminds me of that period of my life when both Blondie and Pat Benatar, they were really hot and you know, they were, you know, just smoking, you know, it seemed like every album put out was by one of those two.
Yeah. And
it reminded me of a certain time, but there will soon come a time where there are no memories like that anymore. Nobody remembers, I remember, you know, we were at summer camp and I had my Walkman and we were playing, you know, Blondie or Pat Benatar or Queen or what. There won't be people around that have those memories. So why would they go in and buy a vinyl record?
Yeah.
You know, they have no recollection of it. They have no memory. I have nostalgia because my mom had a huge vinyl record collection because she majored in music in college. So she had everything from Elvis to the Platters. I mean, just tons and tons of vinyl albums. And so it brings back memories of my mom too. But I don't think my daughter's ever seen me play a record. You know, by the time she was born, we just didn't do that anymore. You know, it was CDs and that type of thing. And so the other concern I have is, you know, what happens at that point? You know, what happens to the physical book? Because there will soon come a generation that has no memory of physical books of any type.
Yeah.
You know, everything will be digital.
Yeah.
You know, from that perspective. And then what happens there? So I don't know. I mean, you've unpacked a lot here. So is it possible for comic readership to go up, but still be able to preserve the physical books? I don't know. I don't know if that's still possible.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe it is because people do still go out and buy physical pieces of artwork. Okay. Yep. Although, you know, NFTs now have hit the scene. So, you know, is that now in danger as well? I don't know. But I believe that there is a place for the physical comic, but the problem is finding where that place is. Yeah. And at the same token, you know, increasing the readership. So like your movie theater example, yeah, I wouldn't put a spinner rack in there, but if it were a Batman movie, I would, you know, probably advertise, you know, first 100 people in the theater get a free, you know, commemorative Batman comic, whatever you want to call it. Maybe Batman, you know, Detective Comics 1000. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, collector's item, you know, really, really kind of push that. But is the movie theater or the studios really motivated to do that? You know, where's the end game? You know, from our standpoint, we're trying to save the physical readership of the physical comic. You know, from their perspective, is it worth the trouble and the time? What's the benefit to them?
Yeah, I feel that 100% because the amount of money that these movies generate, you know, is way higher than what, you know, the comic books will generate, right?
Yes, exactly.
But these characters mean so much to so many people, even people that aren't avid comic book readers. And so it's just, there is, I think out there, we need to make more of an effort to let people know that comics still exist, right? So put a damn comic book advertisement on your comic book movie. Like right before, just be like, hey, you like Infinity War? Hey, go to your local comic shop, go here, go to Target, go to Walmart, wherever. Infinity Gauntlet. Put out a cheap version of Infinity Gauntlet to go along with Infinity War. Obviously, that time has passed, but you get what I'm saying, because that's what people were coming into my shop wanting to read. Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War. They wanted to read it. Well, I want to know where the story came from, or I want to know where it's going to go. People did that with Walking Dead. Something big has to happen to get people to remember that comics exist. Then they can go find them, but they need to see them. I would like to see comics somewhere again, like Target or Walmart. And I'm not talking about those 100-page giants they put in there and only every Walmart got 5 copies and the speculators came in and tore them up like they do the Pokemon cards or whatnot. Yep. I mean, just having cheap, silly comics there just in case somebody walks by, just putting the idea out there that they're still around, I think would go a long way. And we got to start treating the digital marketplace like the newsstand, and we got to make it easy and understandable, because what Amazon is doing right now with Comixology, that ain't it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Here's what I think is very, very important. As you know, and you know, Marvel and DC, I don't really include in this example only because, you know, they're the ones directly benefiting from the movies as well.
Yeah.
I think what's important for the indie publishers, I think it's important for the LCSs, I think it's important for the comic book community that wants to keep it going, keep it growing. I think the point, and the onus is on all of us, the point that we need to be driving home is, hey, did you like Avengers Endgame? Did you like Black Panther? Are you excited to watch Doctor Strange? Okay. Are you excited about the new Batman movie? You are? Where do you think all the source material is coming from?
Yeah.
All right. I think that in a sense, you almost have to make them panic. You realize if comic books go bye-bye, Hollywood's got nothing. They got nothing to work with, because all the source material they're grabbing it from is from these comics. Okay. Look at any Avengers movie. You see the elements of Joe's, you know, Captain America. You see the elements of that Joe Simon created. You almost have to scare people like, hey, you're ignoring this, but this is the seed that makes your movie. And if you don't have any seeds, eventually, you're looking at a field of food going, oh man, we're never going to starve. And then the field of food runs out. And you realize, well, let's grow some more. You can't. You didn't pay any attention to the seeds, bro. Okay, so there is no more food now. You know, and I think that that's the message that we need to convey, you know, as a hobby, if you will, because you've got a lot of potential readers out there, because you know they like the stories.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to the movies, aren't they? You know, I mean, you got the trailers coming out during the Super Bowl. You know, people like these stories. Okay, so you got to give them something. All right, and you've got to give them something to make them realize, to make them cross over. And I think that if we can successfully do that, and I think that that's something that's really, the comic book industry hasn't really tried to engage. And you've got a lot of potential readers out there. You just got to get them to read it, and you need to get those comics into their hands. And, you know, whether it be digital, whether it be physical, you need to get them engaged, because we already know. Do they like the stories? Do they like these kind of superhero fantasy, whatever the case may be? They sure do, because they're paying top dollar to go see the movie. So if they're going to see the movie, then that means they like the story.
Yeah.
You know,
and
now some people just don't
stuff.
like to read. There's nothing you can do about that. But you know,
and even the indie stuff works. You know, Walking Dead, right? Mm-hmm. The Boys, one of y'all's books, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people are into The Boys. How many of them know that that's a book that they can go in and buy? And when people find out, they've been coming in my shop, and The Boys right now is doing what Walking Dead did. It's selling all the time.
Well, the animated series drops next week, so you know, there's a lot, you know, there's a lot that can be done, but I don't expect the studios to do anything, because they don't see it. Okay, they're, you know, unfortunately, most large corporations are like that. They see the immediate quarter and a quarter beyond it. You know, I'll give Kevin Feige, you know, enough credit that he's had that long-term version, but only as it pertains to the movies. I don't think anybody in Hollywood's thinking about, well, what happens when the source material dies?
Yeah.
You know, so that becomes a danger. You know, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to evolve, but it's definitely evolving, and there's no way around that. We just got to figure out what direction it's going into, and make sure that the only way to convey these stories is not through the movies.
Absolutely,
that would be a real shame. And I'm hoping that the positive side of digital comics is it will allow a lot of creators or would-be creators out there to get their stuff out there. And that's one of the benefits of books switching to a digital format. You can self-publish now, and you don't need the big publishers to back you and say, no, I read your manuscript, your idea is stupid, we're not doing it. Okay, if you really believe in your idea, put it out there, and maybe they're wrong. So I think that's one of the benefits, is that if it takes hold and we can keep those that we have and bring some new ones in, that will allow a lot of would-be creators to kind of really get out there. How many good creators do you think were lost during the years when when they just couldn't get published? They had an idea and the editor goes, nah, that's stupid, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a positive. But again, you've unpacked a whole bunch of stuff there with that question, my friend.
Exactly. And it led to another fascinating conversation with my friend Rex. So thank you so much, Rex, for joining for that conversation, because I feel like there's still a lot of conversation to be had, and I want to hear what you out there have to say about how do we bring new readers into comics, how do we grow the readership of comics and continue to safeguard this industry into the future. Drop a comment below explaining what you think, and you'll be entered to win the contest. The winner will be announced on Monday's show over at the EXP. And now it's time for us to pull the winner from Monday night's show. All right, so this is...
It will be one of the new the prize for today will be one of the new premium metal covers from Dynamite. And it will be a random title, but it will definitely be a metal cover. And these are actually real aluminum covers. They are not foil covers or anything like that. So that will be the prize of the show.
All right, Rex and I am spinning Rockin Robbie's ridiculous wheel of revolution and randomness.
There's a different name every show.
Yeah, I need to write it down so I don't forget it. And the winner is Adrian
Montanez. Yay! All right, you will be getting your free Dynamite metal cover, and we'll get it right out to you. And Robbie, if you don't mind, send me an email so I have that down for Adrian to get his metal cover.
Absolutely. I'll send that to you as soon as we wrap up here, which we're doing right now. So everybody join us over at the Experience on Monday night. We got lots of great stuff. There's going to be CGC books. There's going to be commissioned cover art. There's going to be great collectibles and comics, all that kind of stuff. And then don't forget to check out the original art show tonight with Nick over at the EXP as well. Rex, thank you for joining us.
As always, it's a pleasure. And don't forget, on Monday, we're going to talk about horror films and comics as well.
Oh, I am so ready. Ready for the 4-hour EXP show, everybody? Just kidding. Anyway, thank you for joining us, Station.